Hey guys, it's Sandro here, and welcome to part 2 of the detail on this BMW M140i finale. Now in part 1 I explained the customer's needs and goals for this job, as we went through the wash and decontamination stages to get the vehicle ready for polishing, which always starts with a thorough IPA panel wipe down to ensure that any chemical residue is removed so that the paint is as clean and bare as possible before the paint correction begins. I'll also add that I think too many people rush this IPA panel wipe down. After washing and drying the vehicle, there's always going to be some residue streaks and even some trapped grime that resurfaces as you blow out the water. So after spending so much time decontaminating the car, my advice is just spend a little more time ensuring you collect and remove all of that residue before your polisher hits the paint, as it will avoid many potential issues in my experience.
Now I'ma put it down like that. I'm leaving, I ain't coming back. You don't like the way I act anyway. You really don't have to react. Don't try to change my mind, in fact. Honey, I've already packed all my stuff. We're no longer kids, let's move on. And you are not my kid, so I'm done. Please don't make me pull my gun. Sorry boy, I can't be the one. You know it, yeah, nothing lasts forever.
With the paint thoroughly prepped, the next step was assessing its condition under some proper defect spotting lights. Now, as mentioned in part 1, this M140 is only about 6 months old, so it's not like the paint is going to be completely trashed or anything like that. But at the same time, I can definitely see that there's a lot of room for improvement to get this paint looking its absolute best. There's a definite haziness to the overall finish of the paint, which is partly due to some light swirls and just a lack of clarity, where the metallic flakes just look a little muted and dull, rather than a rich deep finish that a new paint job should have. Apart from that, there's also a few more random, moderate scratches here and there, and a bit of water and bug splatter spots that have lightly etched their way into the paint. And I can also see a bit of sealant or wax residue here and there that has stained a few of the plastic trims that'll also need to be removed. So all in all, I wouldn't say it's all that bad, but it's not all that great for a relatively new car. But on the plus side, I feel I should be able to get this paint looking better than new for the owner with some great protection in place once I'm done. Next was measuring the existing paint or clear coat. Now, as you hopefully see, once I take a few more readings, the paint has an average overall thickness of about 120 microns, which these days for a brand new car is about as good as it seems to get. I've talked about this a lot in the past, where just a few years ago the average reading I was getting on new cars was closer to 150 microns. A few years before that it was more like 175 and so on. So it seems as though paint is just being applied thinner and thinner from all car manufacturers every single year, which is really disappointing. Now on some other new cars that I've done recently, such as Mazdas and Subarus, it's been even worse with readings like 80 to 90 microns, which is pretty appalling. So I'll take 120 microns over 80 any day. And just to be clear, a light correction, such as the one I'm going to be performing on this car, isn't going to remove much clear coat at all, and it won't be a measurable difference once I'm done. So my concern here isn't about being scared I'll burn through the paint. It's about my concern that almost all new cars today just don't have enough paint to see them through the next few decades, unlike the cars made before them. It's probably good news for body shops that'll almost have guaranteed work as a consequence of this thin paint, but it's bad news for us car enthusiasts who love original OEM paint on our classic cars. So next was masking some of the plastic and rubber trims to protect them during the paint correction process. And as I also mention all the time, it's also to protect your polishing pads from picking up unwanted residue from those trims that can scratch the finish of the paint. So onto doing a test section to discover which combination of compound, polish and technique are going to render the best results on this particular paint. Now starting with the least aggressive method, my first combination was using NV Finesse polish on the Lake Country Orange HDO pad with the Rupes Melee Polisher. I'm going to start with a touch more polish as it's a fresh pad and work a section about 6 to 8 times the size of my pad, set my polisher speed to about 4.5 and use light to moderate pressure with a slow arm movement, doing about 3 row passes as my starting technique. And as per usual, I'll then be using an IPA panel wipe to remove any polishing oils before inspecting my results. Now, being a brand new BMW, I would expect this paint to be rather hard, and as such, I'll probably need a bit more aggression. But like I mention all the time, even if a combination isn't the right one to start with, it always gives you valuable information about the paint, so that you can then work towards finding that right combination with that information at hand. So having a look at the results, I can immediately see an improvement in the gloss and saturation. Now it's hard to capture metallic paints on camera, but the easiest way to tell in the footage is with the metallic flakes that have gone from being a dull and washed out shade to a richer and warmer tone. But I can also see that I've probably only removed about half of the existing swirls with this combination, so I will need something a little more aggressive to remove the rest of them and perhaps bring out even a little more saturation and clarity in the finish. So for my next combination, I stuck with the same Lake Country pad, but this time stepped up to Shoal Concepts S20 Black Medium Compound. So the goal here would be to get a little more defect removal from this compound, but still retain the great finish I was getting with this pad. As far as technique goes, I'm just going to slightly increase my machine speed and add just a touch more moderate pressure, but apart from that, my method will be quite similar. Now as we have a look at the results in this second test section, it's definitely a better result on all fronts, showing even better levels of gloss and clarity while still removing more of the existing defects. However, although it's a great result, removing about 80% or so of the defects, it's still not quite to the level which I'm after, which is more like 95% plus defect removal. And being that the paint isn't really all that bad, and this is still a moderately aggressive combination, further confirms that this is definitely a hard BMW paint. Now being that S20 Black has finished rather perfectly on this paint, I decided to stick with it, but this time try it with the Lake Country Blue HDO foam pad for a little more cut, and my machine and technique was identical to the last section. Now having a look at the results in this third test section, I just couldn't be more happy with the outcome. The gloss and saturation levels are really outstanding with perfect clarity, and I've also managed to easily remove at least 95% of the existing defects, but it's actually closer to 100%. So with just about perfect levels of both cut and finishing qualities on this harder BMW paint, Shoal Concepts S20 Black on the Lake Country Blue foam pad, together with this basic technique, seems to be a winner as a single stage correction. Now as I finish up polishing the bonnet, I just want to bring up a couple of points about different paint types. If this car was a brand new black Honda Civic Type R with similar light defects, chances are that this combination would just be too aggressive for what's most likely needed for that softer paint. Whereas on a harder paint such as this, it's actually quite a gentle, non-aggressive combination and the minimal amount of aggression needed on this harder paint type. So what I'm trying to get at is that the specific paint you're working on is going to largely determine how aggressive your combination actually is in real terms. Now that doesn't change the way you should approach the paint, which is always starting with the least aggressive method that has the potential to work. But I just wanted to highlight that how aggressive a combination actually is largely depends on the paint type that you're polishing. So with the bonnet all completed, hopefully you guys can see that the paint has turned a darker shade of black with all that haze gone, and perhaps the even bigger difference is the warmer and more golden tone that the metallic flakes have taken on. Now for this job and many details I do on new or near new cars, you'll see that I use my larger polishers a little more than my mini polishers, which is the complete opposite when I'm working on older cars with more severe paint defects. The thing is that when you have more weathered or damaged paint, you need more aggressive pads and compounds to successfully remove those defects, and you'll also more than likely, but not always, have to do a multi-stage correction. So in those cases, you need to use your smaller pads and machines if you're looking for a higher end result, and to also ensure that you're not using overly aggressive compounds and pads on sensitive edges with your larger and more aggressive machines and pads. So in other words, the worse the paint is, the longer, the more intricate and more time consuming and risky the job becomes. But when the paint's not all that bad, you can move a little quicker and work a lot safer with your larger polishers and pads because you're not removing as much paint or clear coat simply for the fact that you just shouldn't have to obtain those same great results. Now, as I mentioned in part 1, the customer has opted for a glass coating on this job. So apart from addressing any light water spots and marks on the glass, polishing is absolutely necessary if you want a glass coating to effectively bond to the glass and also last as long and perform as good as possible. And you really don't have to overthink it when it comes to glass, because it's just such a hard material that it'll always finish perfectly with almost any pad and compound combination. So in most cases, I'll just use the same combination I'm using on the paint to also polish the glass. A lot of the rest of the footage is fairly self-explanatory from this point on, but I guess I can add that some of the black gloss plastics, as well as the head and tail lights, did need a second stage of polishing to refine the finish, as those trims had a softer clear coat that needed the finer pad and polish to finish with perfect clarity. Beyond that, and on a side note, I've been having more and more of you guys messaging me with similar questions about starting out in the industry and just wanting some advice, which I thought I might just quickly touch on here as I wrap up this video. Firstly, just like anything else in life that's worthwhile, it takes time to work up to having your dreams set up and your ideal clients and cars. So expect a lot of hard work and many years of struggle before you get there. But if you're not afraid of hard work, if you make smart choices and grow slowly and steadily, if you look after your customers and treat them with kindness and respect, and if you're honest in delivering what you promised to them, then there's nothing holding you back. Secondly, I've never met a rich detailer, so if money is your driving force, look elsewhere, because this job requires love for your work, and it's an honest but modest income for most of us. When starting out, don't turn down work, as even if you just break even, it's extremely valuable experience. But again, be honest and don't promise anything beyond your skill set. And if you don't feel comfortable doing something, like removing a deeper scratch or a ceramic coating, just let the client know that. In most cases, they'll be fine if you're just upfront about it. Lastly, I know we all get excited about detailing products and equipment, but I'll let you in on a little secret. A great detailer will get superior results with lesser products and equipment compared to an average detailer with the very best of everything. So the old saying that it's not what you got but what you do with it stays true for detailing professionals. I'll leave you guys with the rest of the footage, but I hope you stay tuned for part 3 and the final chapter in this series, where I'll be ceramic coating the paint and trims and then showing you guys the final finished results. As always, I really hope you guys enjoyed and found this video useful. Please share this video, like, comment and subscribe to this channel to show your support for this content, and I'll see you guys soon.
I don't wanna stop it, but I know my mind ain't even close to where my heart is. I should let go, I should be open. My troubled water's deep, yeah, deep like an ocean.
Swimming in your ocean, my chest is pounding, cause this love is too deep and my heart is drowning for you. I'm sinking deep and I can't make a move. I'm way down with these feelings for you.
There's a million reasons why I should say no. If we cross the line, we can't go back to before. All I really know is I'm not ready for this. You're so much more to me than a risk.
Oh, every day you remind me I've been walking through the dark cause your love is blinding. You can shed some light if you take the time. Realize my love has got years behind it.
Can't stop thinking how this love's taking me out of expectations. Plans I'm making for you.
And every time you stop, I stop running from my heart. Love won't let me get too far. Losing patience, I've been waiting for you.
I've been waiting for you.
Mind is slipping, my heart is skipping 30 beats per second, won't you take a listen for once? I know you got love for me, but I know that we're feeling love differently.
I can't deny what I'm feeling for you. It's been so long since I felt something true. I won't admit that I'm scared to jump in. Maybe this is magic, this is how love begins.
Let's not try to pretend we can't be more than friends. I've been here from the start.